candidates have been talking to each other, and it's been disruptive to other candidates, and I don't think that's fair, and so I'm asking you, please, let's don't do that. The candidates will be given questions, but they will begin this debate with a 1-minute opening statement, after which questions will be given to them. They will have 90 seconds each to respond to the questions. Now, for those of you who are in the at-large race, these same instructions will be given to you. After each candidate has had an opportunity to answer the questions, each candidate will be given 30 seconds for rebuttal. Keep in mind that our moderator is in control of the debate. And according to his curiosities, he may ask a follow-up question or ask for an explanation. So this is not going to be quite like the other forums. This one is going to be what we hope it to be a true debate. And this is the last confrontation that these candidates are going to have before we go to early voting. After the questions have been answered, rebutted, we're going to give each candidate 2 minutes for closing. During each person's closing statement, they are expected to state their best ideas that separate them from their candidates. For this debate tonight, our moderator is Nico Clemens from WCJB, Channel 20 TV. Mr. Clemens, would you stand, please? The questions that are going to be asked and answered tonight have not been seen by no one but Mr. Clemens and I. I'm the one who typed them up. I did not compose them, but I did have something to do with them. But as I say, no one has seen these questions, and we want to see a lively debate tonight, and I say good luck to each of you, and I hope you brought your creativity with you tonight, because I think that we're going to have a real good debate. Thank you very much. Mr. Clemens?
Good evening. Again, like you said, I'm Nico Clemens, news reporter for TV 20. I am not Zach Aldridge, the sports reporter, who I get mistaken for a lot. But thank you all for coming out tonight. We really appreciate you all, and we're going to try to get this moving and going as quickly as possible. And we hope you all enjoy tonight's debate. We're going to, like you said, we're going to start off with our opening statements. And like you said, I am the moderator, so I will try to direct as best as possible where who we start with, who we finish with. So we're going to begin with our opening statements, and we're going to start to my left with Chris Weaver, and we're going to move all the way over to you all's left to my right. So opening statements, you have 1 minute each for your opening statement. Chris Weaver.
First, can you all hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. I would like to thank everybody for coming out and being actively involved as a voter in the city of Gainesville. I am Christopher Weaver. I'm from Pompano Beach, Florida, and I went to Florida A&M University for my bachelor's and my master's degree. I came to Gainesville because I received a fellowship to go to the University of Florida to receive my PhD. And since I've been in town, I've been extremely involved, whether that's on campus or in the community. I only have 1 minute, so I'll keep it short. But this election is about going in a different direction for District 1. Recently at the University of Florida, a large group of students started their own party, the Access Party, and they have won the latest student government election. The reason I bring this up is because students at the University of Florida realized that the people that were representing them weren't representing all of the needs of the students. So they went out on a leap of faith, and they started their own party, and they won. Residents in District 1 have that same feeling for their commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver.
I should all vote. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Gostin.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the Florida Political Black Caucus for sponsoring this event, and I'm very happy to be here tonight to participate. I'm a proud graduate of Lincoln High School. I attended Florida A&M University, had the opportunity to march with the greatest band in the world, the Marching 100. I served my country in the United States Army overseas, came back and attended the University of Florida, helped to establish the Institute of Black Culture, the Black Student Union, and the Afro Student Union at Santa Fe. I have been the president of the Alachua County Democratic Black Caucus for 2 terms. I was the president of the AFSCME 3030 Union as the president for 3 years, and the union steward for 5. And I'm running because I'm forced to believe that District 1 is ready to move into the 21st century.
Thank you, Ms. Costa. Mr. Jewell.
All right, I'd like to thank the Florida Political Black Caucus for having us here. I'd like to thank you, Nico, for moderating, and I'd like to thank everyone else for being here. My name is Lucas Jewell. I'm a former U.S. Navy Air Traffic Controller in the greatest Navy in world history. So to get into some of the issues, people on the east side of Gainesville can barely make ends meet. They're living paycheck to paycheck. I know some candidates up here can't really relate to those kind of people, but I, as a commissioner, am vowing to never vote for a GRU rate increase. That's what I can do to help those people who are already struggling. Also, I'm the only candidate here who has consistently mentioned the disproportionate minority contacts that the City Commission's own report has detailed. You know, I take pride in that, and so, you know, if I'm mentioning that, I have to talk about solutions. 40% of GPD police cars have dash cams. I think we need to add some more.
Thank you. Mr. Henry.
Hi, first of all, let me thank the Florida Political Black Caucus for having us here tonight. My name is Sherwin Henry. I'm a native of Gainesville, graduate of Lincoln High School, Santa Fe Community College, as well as the University of Florida. I'm married to my wife, Charmaine, of 43 years. We have 2 children, Gerard, Renee, 2 grandchildren, and 1 on the way. I'm recently retired from the University of Florida as a senior biological scientist. I am a 2-term Gainesville City Commissioner, District 1. And for me, this particular race is really about families, parents, being able to support their families and securing an economic future for our children. And I look forward to the questions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. And thank you all, everyone. You can go vote. We're done. No, I'm messing. I'm playing. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Like Mr. Morrison in the beginning, I have a number of questions here. You all will have 90 seconds, that's a minute and a half, 90 seconds to answer the question. He will continue with the time cards over here. And like we did before this time, I'll start, I'll call on a candidate and we'll go from there. So here we go. My first question. The Gainesville City Commission is presently confronted with the issue concerning the governance of GRU. Assume that you have been elected to the commission and an independent board must be put in place. How should the members be selected? By the city commission or the citizens through an election, and why? All right, so that's my first question. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Gostin.
Well, basically, what I would do as a commissioner is I would turn the selection of the people who would sit on that board over to the public. I have much more confidence in the public than I ever would have in the city commission. It was the city commission that created the biomass debacle that's the runaway train that we deal with now. And so if that's going to happen, we're going to have the people's input. And at the same time, you're going to have a select committee that can go out and get experts, because without experts, we'll end up exactly where we started. We're going to have to, have faith in representatives that really are concerned about reducing utility bills, and not people who are just fighting for a special interest that created those utility bills. We have to have people who are sensitive to the so-called families that we have to serve that are starving to death, and to make sure that whatever we do will enhance their quality of life. And as a commissioner, I will do everything within my power to make sure that I don't vote for initiatives that will hurt the consumers, but to make GRU do what they should do, which is to serve the consumers. So basically, I'm gonna leave some of it to the voting public, and the rest should come from a group of folks who are experts on utilities.
Mr. Jewell, same question.
I want to open by saying that I don't support Rick Perry's bill, and I don't believe that we should turn GRU governance over to the state. I've contacted Rick Perry and told him that I don't support his bill, and I encourage all of you to do the same. What I do believe is that the commission should select 4 experts to be on an advisory board and have 2 elected civilians, or citizens, which would equal 6 total people, and then the city commission would have veto power and tie-breaking power over the board. So this is just an idea. I'm open to other ideas as far as moving governance away from the commission. But I think that it's important that we have a good mission statement for the new board. You know, we can set up a board and say, okay, we have a board, now all our problems are solved. But it's important to direct the board in the right way and say, hey, focus on reducing costs. Focus on making us more efficient. Focus on going green. So while a board would be a good idea, I think it's important that the board is properly aimed.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver.
First, I would like to say that I'm not in favor of an independent board. However, your question says if one is so. If this is out of my hands, then as a commissioner, the board, the authority board will be structured as far as those on it. I'm in favor of them being appointed. And this is why. First and foremost, I'm not against the authority board. So I actually think that the citizens should be able to vote every election for a commissioner who will have their best interest on this GRU board. But if one is created to where we have to appoint somebody, I believe that those people should be appointed to terms that mirror the terms of the commissioners who appointed them in office, pretty much tying them into the commissioners who gave them the job. Therefore, if there's ever a vote or a policy that's not in the best interest of the people, then they could then look back to that commissioner who appointed them and said, this is the best judgment that you gave us on this board. So with that said, I do believe that there should be 7 members appointed to the board if a board will be created. And I do agree with Lucas that that board should focus on specific policy issues such as making GRU more efficient, such as if we're going to move into solar energy, then that's something that the board should all agree on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henry.
Thank you. The first thing, and this is where experience comes in, is that if the board is going to be established, obviously the city commission is going to put forth the referendum. The referendum itself will be created through a series of meetings with the citizens to establish the template, establishing how the makeup of the advisory board would be as well. I would expect it to have some energy experts on it, some citizens as well, because I do think it's important to have citizen representation on the board. And then once that board is voted on by the citizens, then we can move forward as far as setting the other parameters as well. I do believe the city commission should be the final authority. Also, this board should be an advisory board, and the city commission should be that authority. The problem that I have with Keith Perry's bill is that it infringes on home rule, and the state should not tell the city what it should do. That is our right to determine our own destiny, and so that's the way that I would see things.
Thank you, Mr. Henry, and thank you. We're going to our 30-second rebuttal. Mr. Gostin, rebuttal, 30 seconds.
Yeah, my rebuttal to that is that basically this home rule didn't work. And that's the first problem we have to look at. I don't think that any makeup of the city commission that has even the appearance of a special interest group should even fly. And with a $58 million overpayment leaving Gainesville every year, I think that the people who are gonna deal with this has to be in a position to override what the city commission would maybe try to do by doing the same thing again.
Mr. Jewell?
Well, I think that commissioners are often going to focus on short-term strategies because they have to focus on a re-election, and they're focused on making people happy in the short term. And a board would focus more on a long-term success strategy on how to keep prices stable and low for a long period of time. Also, you know, commissioners in the past have gotten us into deals like the GRET contract, the biomass plant, us being over these overcharges on fuel like Mr. Dawson was talking about.
Thank you. So Weaver, do you agree, commissioners, you know, they're more focused on a short-term goal opposed to a board would be more focused on a long-term goal? 30 seconds.
Yes and no. I think it's
Hello, can you hear me?
yes and no. The commissioner should be focused on the long-term goals of the city. And their board should mirror what the commissioners want. So it should go hand in hand. However, I will say, we've been talking about home rule a lot for GRU, and the reason that home rule is not an issue for GRU is because they don't specifically just offer services for the city, they offer services for the region, so that kind of takes away the home rule.
Thank you. Mr. Henry? 30 seconds.
Obviously, there are those that are not understanding about home rule. Home rule has nothing to do about the area that GRU covers. It's the authority that the governing board is given by the charter of our city. That's really where home rule comes into play. It has nothing to do as far as the boundaries of the utility, none whatsoever. Home rule is that in your charter, you are given specific authority as an incorporated city to do certain things. That's what home rule is about.
Thank you,
We
Mr.
understand what home rule is. We
All right,
don't
let's keep it quick.
have to be explained what the home rule means.
Well, obviously,
And
you
basically,
didn't understand
I
it.
well, we did understand it, that's why we responded to it,
Okay, all
okay?
right.
So what I'm saying to you is that, you know, things that are policy today, once a new commissioner is there, but other commissioners can be changed, along with the charter review and the conditions in that charter. So I don't think that we need to be taken to a class that he's had 6 years to learn, and it didn't do him much good. He signed the biomass contract, so really, he's the last person to be talking about home rule.
Not really.
Mr. Henry, let me go to Mr. Weaver next.
I keep thinking that this is off. Okay, so he just gave us about 20 seconds of actually wrong information. Home rule talks about the authority of local government. We're
That's
talking
correct.
about
Mr.
the
Henry.
city of Gainesville. What I'm saying is the reason that home rule is not an issue for GRU is because they don't just offer services for the city. They offer services for several cities. So how can you call home rule for Gainesville when GRU offers services for the region? That's why it's
Okay,
not
can
an
I-
issue.
Let me go to Mr. Henry, then Mr. Jewell, and we'll wrap up with this discussion. Mr. Henry, 30
The
seconds.
reason the home rule comes into play is because our city commission sits as the governing authority of GRU. That's where the home rule comes into play. We are the board of directors, and we were given that through the charter of the city of Gainesville. We have the authority to set policy for GRU. That's where the home rule comes into play. Again, it has nothing to do with the boundary of where
Thank you,
GRU
Mr.
serves.
Henry.
It has to do with the authority
One
of the
third
governing
Go ahead, Mr.
body.
Jewell. Go ahead, Mr. Jewell.
Thank you. One third of GRU's customers or ratepayers are outside of the city limits of Gainesville, and these people aren't represented. So if commissioners are going to run GRU and claim home rule, maybe those people, one third of the ratepayers, should also be represented.
Thank you all. That wraps up round one. How did you all enjoy round one? All right. We're all getting warmed up. We're all getting, thank you all for, being patient and letting each other talk. So we're gonna try to, keep as much order as we can. I will try to call everyone and give everyone a fair opportunity to speak. Thank you. We'll go to our next question. Question number 2, again, you'll have 90 seconds. So question number 2, some politicians and candidates have suggested that the Alachua County Fairgrounds be used as a catalyst for economic development in East Gainesville. If you were elected to the commission, what type of industry do you think would be willing to locate across the street from Grace Marketplace, and why? I'm going to start with you, Mr. Henry.
Well, actually, there are a few plans that really give examples as to what would be best to locate in that particular area. And basically, it would be light manufacturing and office buildings, for one. The challenge with that particular corridor is that all of our law enforcement, drug treatment facilities line that particular corridor. That's why the airport put in the new road so that citizens that fly into Gainesville, as they leave the airport, seeing those facilities are not the first thing of our city that they see. But I would recommend starting out with light manufacturing, offices, and even maybe a boutique hotel since it's adjacent to the airport.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Mr. Weaver.
I would definitely be in favor of light manufacturing and some heavy manufacturing, depending on what companies are willing to locate there. I think it's a wonderful corridor because it is by the airport. And when you have light manufacturing and heavy manufacturing, companies tend to not care about certain, the Grace Marketplace, for instance. They tend to not care too much about the crime or the property values around where their businesses are located, which has me perplexed on why somebody would suggest a hotel. But that area is definitely prime for light and heavy manufacturing.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Mr. Gostin.
The area that you're talking about is the detention prison strip, 39th Avenue. If they were going to do something to allure other businesses there, one, you'd have to look at a distribution center. That could be self-contained. It would hire a couple of hundred people, maybe 300 or 400 people. And the first thing that I would do, other than that, was to try to convert the Grace Marketplace into a re-entry center. And I keep saying this, we keep paying money from the city and the county to run the Grace Marketplace, when if we had a re-entry center, we could be generating millions of dollars that could cover the cost of running Grace Marketplace and restructure the tent city and everything else that surrounds it and give a safer environment, which is not there now, for that. I don't see any businesses wanting to move in on the fairgrounds. I mean, why would you leave a place in town to move and put your business on the outskirts of town? Where you're going to have to regenerate business, you're going to have to have people that want to come out there, and there's no reason to come unless you're going to catch a plane or go to the jail.
Thank you, Mr. Gostin. Mr. Jewell.
Yeah, people have talked about light manufacturing, heavy manufacturing. I'm for any kind of manufacturing out there. Also, I think because of its location, a supply company would be good. And then maybe another idea is that to draw them in there is you could give them tax incentives for employing people who are transitioning, Gainesville residents who are transitioning out of Grace Marketplace. Kind of like, getting two birds stoned at once, That's a joke in case any of y'all didn't catch it. But we need to make Grace about transition, and I do agree with Mr. Gostin about making it a re-entry center. I think that'd be a great idea.
Thank you. Mr. Henry, we're going to our 30-second rebuttal. Mr. Henry, Mr. Gostin said, he doesn't think he sees any businesses wanting to come over here because of the area. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, you can either be short-sighted or you can have a vision as to what can really be there. And I choose to take the latter because there is great economic opportunity along that corridor. You're talking about distribution centers. Well, I mean, think about it. You're adjacent to the airport. What better place, if you're going to have a distribution center, is to be adjacent to the airport. Also, too, the airport itself, oh,
Thank you, Mr. Henry.
all right.
I'm gonna go to Mr. Gossen, 30-second rebuttal.
Thank you very much. You know, it's amazing how, you know, these creative ideas didn't exist for 2,000 and some odd days when he was sitting in office. Those same spaces were empty, and nothing filled them. And when somebody comes up with a real plan, then all of a sudden it's short-sighted, and what he has is far-sighted. I don't think the voters are gonna be, you know, that uninformed this go around to buy that. So I think that what I'm proposing will be one that will fly.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver.
I really don't have a rebuttal. Actually, all the answers are we pretty much agree on what we would do with the fairgrounds in that area. So I won't beat a dead horse.
Mr. Jewell.
You know, I think some interesting points are brought up here, and when a candidate actually has a record to run on, it's probably harder, you know, especially when you have, you know, all of, you know, like he says, lack of production and the Greg contract, the biomass plant. But it's not just that, you know, I think regular folks in East Gainesville really don't have $8,000 laying around to donate to their own campaign or loan to their own campaign or anything like that. So I think that there is a break between the candidates and the citizens.
Thank you. Ms. Henry, did you have anything extra?
Yeah, all I can say is, you know, don't get mad at me because I put myself in a position to assist my campaign. But the other thing too is that number one, the city has done nothing with the fairground because we don't own the fairgrounds. The county owns the fairgrounds. And Mr. Galston doesn't know everything that I've done, but I've been in constant conversation with Lee Pinkerson and of the county commission about the fairgrounds as well.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Gossen.
You know, the only thing I can say to that is, I don't have to know who he talks to. It's not even relevant. And if we don't own the fairgrounds, why are we spending all this time talking about the fairgrounds other than pies in the sky? Okay? And I'm not into intangible things that can be done. And if that has not been solidified with the county, I'm telling you what could be done based on what can happen if you just get the things out there that will fit.
All right, we're going to move on to our next question.
No, I'd like to address that.
All right, Ms. Henry, you got 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. The point is, in order for our community to reach what it needs to reach, we are going to have to work in partnership. And as a city commissioner, that's what you will have to do. Work in partnership. And things are not going to get done overnight either. But you do have to have a vision, and you have to work with others to bring that vision about.
You know, that to me sounds just like, let me see who has the last word. You know, I'm not into a pissing contest, but I am into, you know, being realistic here. As a commissioner, you know, I'm not only going to work with county commissioners, and like I said, I'm going to go to Tallahassee or wherever I have to go to make District 1 what it should be and what it has not been in the last 35 or 40 years.
Mr. Jewell, do you have anything to add to Mr. Henry, what he just said about, you know, working together?
Well, you know, I worked to help get King Cornell elected, and you know, so I'm friend, and I've also met outside of the political sphere with Commissioner Carl Hutchinson. So, you know, I'm definitely in a good position to work with those guys.
Yeah, this debate is kind of being taken over. But what we have right now is we have a former commissioner who has all these ideas for the fairgrounds, and they didn't come to fruition when he was in office. So what is to make us think that now, a second time around, that he's going to do anything different? Then we have Mr. Galston, who has been in the community for quite some time, and as an active citizen, he hasn't one that's been championing the fairgrounds or economic development as much as he could in East Gainesville. So it's all talk right now, and nobody has shown anything.
Thank you. We're going to move on now. Next question. Next question. The rise in utility rates at GRU continue to be a problem for a number of businesses and individual citizens. Assume that the GREC contract cannot be altered. As a city commissioner, what would you suggest GRU do to help resolve the electricity rate problem? Mr. Drew, I'm going to start with you. And because I feel like I did not read that question properly, I'm going to read it again for you all. The rise in utility rates at GRU continue to be a problem for a number of businesses and individual citizens. Assume the GREC contract cannot be altered. As a city commissioner, what would you suggest GRU do to help resolve the electricity rate problem? Mr. Jewell, 90 seconds.
All right, it's actually very unfortunate that Yvonne Hinton-Ross can't be here, because part of this is directed at her, because she raised the rates prematurely for the GREC contract so that people weren't shocked to see how high their electric bills are going to be. Other candidates have mentioned the rate stabilization fund. I think that's an option. And I think also, you know, you talk about businesses are feeling this struggle, and that's part of what makes it a struggle to recruit businesses here, is knowing that they're going to pay the highest utility rates in the state. I think we should do as the Chamber of Commerce suggests and lower the amount of the general fund transfer from GRU to the city. Right now it's right around $35 million. I mean, divide however many people are paying rates by $35 million, and that's how much money really could be saved.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver.
First and foremost, GRU and the GREC contract is probably one of the most important things facing Gainesville right now, because you can't do anything without sustainable energy, whether that's a business, whether that's running your home, whether that's anything. So first, I just think that the contract of GREC is probably one of the worst I've seen in a while. Anybody with a basic economic background could have seen that rates are going to raise when you put another plant online, when you pay roughly $400 million for the plant, and you don't have any new citizens to generate revenue to pay for the plant. You have to raise rates. That's basic. So I don't see how anybody could vote for it. But seeing that it's here and we have a contract, the first thing we need to do is we need to decrease, the transfers to the general fund from GRU. It's actually $36.7 million in transfers. GRU accounts for 22% of our revenue, so we have to change that. We also have a rate stabilization fund that has $55 million in it. We need to decrease the amount of money that we transfer into that fund, and we also need to give some of that money back to the citizens. It's called a rate stabilization fund. Rates are very high. I don't think rates are stable, so we need to start using that fund a little bit more. Third thing, we need to run GRU like a business. It's an enterprise fund. It's supposed to pay for its expenditures, and we haven't been doing that in the past couple of years.
Thank you. Mr. Henry.
Well, the first thing that I think that we need to do is look at the overall energy program of the city, because there are a number of factors that have put pressure on the rates, the biomass included as well. We need to reduce the fuel surcharge also as well, and that's what I would work toward doing.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Mr. Gostin.
Well, first we got to look at, you know, what the pressures are being placed on the Kelly plant. You know, they always threaten to shut it down, and the Kelly plant is really one of the main plants that creates any kind of stabilization. We've got to find some other places that really want to buy our utilities at a reasonable rate. We can't continue to sell utilities to Winter Haven for $44. We just can't do it. And we are paying $157. And at this particular time, I agree with Mr. Weaver that we've got to find a way to reconfigure the rate stabilization fund, and we've got to run GRU more like a business, and not, you know, be allowed to elect the city commissioners who have turned GRU into their ATM. For all their little pet projects, they always come to GRU to get the money. And that money that they get is passed on to the consumers. And so basically, we can stop that merry-go-round. I think that we could probably find a way, I know we could find a way to reduce the rates to consumers.
Thank you, Mr. Gostin. Mr. Jewell, go ahead.
This is the problem with GRU, though, is you have 4 people, 4 non-experts, up here talking about what's gonna happen with our utility company. This is the problem. The fact that 4 politicians are up here deciding our fate for our utility bills. So we should, this kind of goes back to the expert issue. And, he mentioned some of the power that we're selling. If we're in a position to produce all this power, I think we need to sell more, and try to find a way, maybe these experts can find a way to sell more and lower our rates.
Mr. Weaver, I believe it was Mr. Joy that said earlier about, GRU and Greg as a commissioner might be one of the most important things, if I could correct me if I'm wrong, might be one of the most important things you have to work on and look at as a commissioner. Do you agree?
Yes, I do. I really do. It's like I said, it's very important. Like one of the first things that you have to pay for as a citizen, if you're living somewhere, apartment or house, is electricity. But I failed to mention that right now we have the University of Florida who gets their energy from Duke or Progressive. This is subsidiary of Duke. And we need to get them online with GRU. Yeah, it's going to cost some capital up front because they'll have to take down the infrastructure of Duke Energy. But is this my rebuttal? Or?
Should be the rebuttal.
Okay.
Should be the 30-second.
But it's okay. Definitely having university online with GRU as far as getting our electricity will lower rates for everyone else. So they're in talks right now, and as a commission, we should be doing a better job of lobbying that.
Thank you. Mr. Henry, a couple of them down here mentioned about running GRU like a business. Do you agree with that philosophy, that statement, running GRU like a business?
Yes and no. I mean, it should be run like a business as far as the efficiency and operation as well. It is a city-owned utility also. And what you have to take into account is the historical aspect of the relationship of GRU and the city. And at the same time, you have to keep in mind that government is ever evolving. And that's why I don't have a problem considering the advisory group. Because commissioners don't have the energy expertise that they should. So.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Weaver.
So when I say it should be run like a business, what I specifically mean is over the past 3 to 4 years, revenues from GRU have gone down because houses are becoming more energy efficient, people are using less energy. However, GRU still maintains the same level of FTEs, full-time equivalent, or full-time employees. So that's why rates have to go up. So if any business, when revenue goes down, you have to figure out a way to make do. GRU hasn't been doing that, which is why I say they should run like a business.
Go ahead, Mr. Joel.
Well, I think GRU is not a business, it's a government service with a monopoly on a designated area. And businesses seek to make profit. So if you look at it right now, it really is being run like a business. That 36+ million that you're talking about, that's kind of like a profit for GRU. So it is very business-like in that respect.
Go ahead, Mr.
Okay, and we've definitely been talking about the transfers that GRU makes to the city. However, and a lot of us suggest that we reduce those transfers. What I haven't heard from the other candidates is how we're going to make up for the lost money from GRU. Where are you going to increase revenue when you're suggesting that we just do away with the transfers from GRU?
Do you want me to respond?
If you'd like to, you have 30 seconds.
Well, obviously, I don't suggest that we do away with the entire transfer immediately.
Partial of it. Where would you get the revenue?
Well, I think that you have to cut things in government. I think that you have to find which services are essential, which services aren't, and start working from there.
Thank you all. We're going to go ahead and move on to keep with our time. Recently, $3.1 million was approved by the City Commission to subsidize University Corner, the standard project. If you are elected the commission, would you agree to a policy of not giving subsidies for future development projects? Why or why not? Let's start with you, Mr. Gostin.
Well, no, I wouldn't agree with that, and not only would I not agree with giving a company that kind of money when they're going to have to be responsible for the infrastructure for the building that they're going to build. I have a real problem with the city of Gainesville always seeming to want to give money and projects to outside developers. as if we don't have local developers that could do those jobs. And why should you send millions of dollars out of the city when our contractors and other people who, other subcontractors are looking for work? And it seems impossible to keep making other people rich because of their ties with the university or the city. Because if you go back and look at the city's record, they keep using the same people over and over and over again, making them multi-millionaires. And some of the other people who can do the job just as good don't even get an opportunity. So no, I wouldn't agree to give $3.1 million to somebody who's gonna build something, who's gonna have to put that infrastructure in anyway for the contractor to be able to build the building. I wouldn't do that.
Mr. Jewell.
So, I am for housing folks who need it. I think we all in Gainesville, I've seen Maseratis driving in Gainesville. The fact that someone in Gainesville doesn't have a roof over their head is disgusting. But I think you do need to avoid the giant buddy pet contracts that sometimes happen in government. And also, as Mr. Gosselin pointed out, it is important to keep the contracts local. That's all I have.
Ms. Henry.
Well, there are a couple of things. Number one, for me, it's on a case-by-case basis, but it's also the cost-benefit of what is being presented to the city. The second thing is that you can put stipulations in the contracts for certain levels of local hiring as well. And we've done that before, and it's something that can continue to be done. But also, too, when you have a plot of land that's just sitting there being non-productive, and then you can get that land developed, and it's going to give you anywhere from 200 to, say, $5 million in ad valorem taxes, that is something that you need to consider, taking in the jobs that it possibly is going to create as well.
Mr. Weaver.
I think that this was a case of what you can call government overreach. I feel like that particular area, and I agree with Sherwin Henry, is that you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. Definitely when you're talking about offering economic incentives for business to come here and grow, sometimes you have to give them incentive to do that. Now for this particular case, we're talking about prime time land in Gainesville. You did not need to give anyone $3.1 million to build something there. If there was an economy, or if there was a need for housing there, then the regular economic market here would have produced an incentive for somebody to invest their own money in there. So we didn't need to give a company $3.1 million, a company that's outside of Gainesville, when we have sections of the city such as the Porter's community that looks almost no different from a neighborhood in Haiti right now. At the same time that's going on here in Gainesville, we're giving $3.1 million for people to build on primetime real estate. So it's a matter of finding out what are the priorities in the city, and I definitely think that the commission got that wrong. One commissioner who isn't here today actually wasn't even there for the vote, and it was, I believe, a 4-2 vote. She could have probably swung it to a favorable outcome. So we definitely need commissioners on the board who have more priorities than just economic development. It's about the cities and making sure that people, the citizens, and making sure that people are living comfortably.
Thank you. Ms. Gosselin, you were shaking your head, you were agreeing.
Yeah. I have to respond to that because, when you have former commissioners like Ms. Henson Rawls, she wasn't going to come tonight anyway because this is not a comfortable setting for her. All the other ones were. Basically, if you go back and you look at the record for contractors and contracts with the city of Gainesville, you have never seen an incentive to get minorities into the process. And as a commissioner, that's the main thing I would correct from the beginning. You've got women who own companies. You've got minorities who own companies. And they don't even have 1% of 1% of the business. So,
thank you. Mr. Jewell, you agree, you're shaking your head,
Well, I think that the contracts issued should be representative of the population, just like, our police force should be representative of the population. A bunch of white officers in a black neighborhood probably isn't going to work as well as having people who are more similar to the people who live in those areas. So I think that, you know, if we as a city are paying for these contracts, the people who are getting these contracts need to be more representative of us.
Thank you. Ms. Henry, you have anything else to add? 30-second rebuttal?
Yeah, I'd like to say that historically, the city has had an abysmal record of involving minority vendors in its business, but some changes have been made and some parameters have been reached, and I think Cecil Howard did a great job, and I worked with him during my last 4 years, and we did get some policies changed with the city and GRU to include more minority women businesses as vendors to do business with the city.
Thank you all. This might. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Weaver, go ahead. I apologize.
So we've gotten into contracting for minority firms. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
Oh, we've gotten into contracting for minority firms, but the major question was about whether we would follow a policy of giving firms money to finish these projects, or to start these projects. I wouldn't have gave $3.1 million to any firm in Gainesville to do a project on that property because it was not needed.
Right, and I agree with Chris, because I'm saying this, is that if that business would have been a minority business, they wouldn't have even been offered $3.1 million. They would have been offered $1.1 million. They wouldn't have been offered anything. They would have had to come in there and pay for their own maintenance for that infrastructure. But the city found it really, really convenient to offer them $3.1 million when the guy said, we didn't need the contractor said, we don't really need this, okay? So this is what I'm talking about. There has to be an autopsy on the city commission, and that's why we're running. And that's why I tell people, when you do a good job as a commissioner, you don't have these many people running.
Thank you, Mr. Godson. Gentlemen, we're gonna could stay here all night, but we're gonna have to go ahead and wrap it up. So each of you will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. 2 minutes. We're gonna go ahead and start with Mr. Jewell. 2 minutes for a closing statement.
Alrighty, I'd like to thank everyone for being here, and, you know, I think that the commissioner for District 1 needs to be someone who really embraces the issues of East Gainesville, because that's what District 1 is all about. People in District 1 don't have money to be driving around in brand new Mercedes. They don't have money to be donating $8,000 to their own campaign. And they're struggling to live in week to week, paycheck to paycheck. And so I vowed to never vote for a GRU rate increase or a tax increase. I think that's the right thing to do. Also, you know, we talked about the disproportionate minority contact earlier. 40% of the police cars, GPD police cars, have dash cams. That's a liability for the police department. That's a financial liability, and I think that we need to equip all of our police vehicles with dash cams and equip the officers with body cameras. Also, here in Alachua County, over 65% of people voted for medical marijuana. Amendment 2. Across the state, right around 58% voted for medical marijuana. And across the state, right around 48% voted for Rick Scott. Skeletor, a.k.a. Voldemort, a.k.a. Rick Scott, is our governor, and we don't have weed, you know? So I think that a commoner can observe the process and say something is fundamentally wrong here. Something is wrong when the commissioner responsible for the deal that is holding the city back, the rec contract, is running for re-election. How is this happening? Well, I guess we'll find out what's going to happen March 17th. We're going to find out March 17th if the city's really ready to move into a new direction, if the city's willing to support these progressive ideas or not. Vote for Lucas Jewell.
Thank you, Mr. Jewell. Mr. Weaver, 2 minutes.
I wasn't able to finish my opening statement. It was a little short, but I'm going to go back to the University of Florida because something major happened over the past 2 days. I was a student senator and I resigned to run in this election, but there's a lot that we can learn as citizens from the students at the University of Florida from this past recent election. They decided that those who were elected to represent them were not representing them. So they got together and they started their own party. When everybody said, you're not going to beat the Swamp Party, they came out and they won by 124 votes, just 124 votes. They wanted to be a change for the university, and they went out and they voted differently, and they got exactly what they wanted. They got an administration that's going to be responsive to their needs. Here, the citizens of Gainesville, especially in my district, it's no different. For the past decade, we've had the same type of leadership. We've had the same problems over and over again. We're regurgitating what we have at every other debate for every other election in the past decade. Gandhi said, be the change you want to see, right? So if you want to see change in your local government, then you have to change the way you vote. You have to change the way that you look at your elected officials. You have to change the way, the expectations that you have from your elected officials. And I believe that I'm the candidate that is different. I'm a person who knows about local government. I know the intricacies of local government. So when you're talking about making it run efficiently, I know where to look at to make local government run efficiently. I won't approve a contract before I do the due diligence in reading the entire contract and consulting with others outside of city government about the impact that that contract is going to have on the city. So on March 17th, make sure you go out, you vote differently, you vote for Chris Weaver. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Mr. Gostin.
I'd like to thank you very much and say that all of my life I've been a public servant. And everybody in Gainesville should know that. Mr. Weaver said something very significant earlier. He said, well, Mr. Gostin's been around a long time and he had opportunity to do some stuff. But I did a lot of stuff. But the one thing that was missing, out of all the things that I didn't have the ultimate authority. When I'm elected commissioner, you are going to give me the ultimate authority to make changes that everybody else had no guts to make. Now, it bothers me tremendously when you have to fight special interests. And when I look around this room, because of the fact that special interest has been the reason that Annie Orlando didn't win her election, Miss Barbara Sharp didn't win hers, and Bonnie Burgess didn't win hers, and that special interest has to be neutralized. And you have to do it with a force of people who understand what we're doing. Now, we've been fighting with a local political organization, the DEC, for quite a while, over 20 years. For what? And then you have Ms. Henson Rawls, who would normally be sitting here. When this incident started years ago with this To Whom It May Concern letter, she was the first one who came to the door when she didn't show up tonight, the same way Craig Lowe didn't show up when he was running for mayor against Mr. Henry, and came to the door and said, well, we've been trying to take their charter for 1.5 years. Why? You don't need a person with that kind of character ever sitting behind the dais again. And I'm telling you that by me running, it's going to be a change of attitude, a change of direction, and I don't have to be wound up to go get the job done. I'm ready to do it. And see, I want to do it because I'm tired of seeing people in District 1 suffer, black and white, young and old. Because he had 6 years to do it, didn't do it. She had 3 years to do it, didn't do it, because they pledged their allegiance to the DEC. I'm pledging my allegiance to the citizens of District 1.
Thank you, Mr. Gostin. And Mr. Henry.
Thank you. First of all, let me just thank the people of Gainesville for trusting me, electing me to serve them for the 6 years that I did. And during those 6 years, it was the people that elected me, that voted for me, that trusted me. I was not part of quote-unquote special interests. And yes, I got 6 to 8% of the vote both times because I was out talking to the people and sharing with them what my vision was for the city of Gainesville and District 1. I only joined the DEC when I ran for mayor. So let's just get that fact straight. Up until that point, I had only been Sherwin Henry candidate for District 1. And that's the difference with me than with others. I've only run because I felt in my heart that that's what I was led to do by the Lord, and that's it. I love Gainesville, I'm a native of Gainesville, and I've always had a vision to make Gainesville a city for all people. And I did some great things when I served, whether those out there agree or up here agree or not. I'm proud of my record, and I will not step back from the achievements of my record. And I just speak to the people again, because the electorate is very astute. And again, I just ask you to vote for me on March 17th, again, for the leadership, the vision, and experience. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for our candidates for District 1. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Validated.